He drags a plush teddy bear across the ground by one paw. Something is screaming inside it. A saint is inside that bear. This person was a literal ranked deity-blessed champion of humanity. Now the champion is stuffed into cheap cotton and sobbing. Freeze that scene. Rewind 6 hours. A different saint watched his $1 billion legendary weapon snap like a breadstick. This saint consisted of pure lightning and ego. He paid $1 billion for that item at auction. The weapon was actually just a regular cow bone. An entire cult magic grid goes dark across the planet in 1 second. Thousands of elite fighters lost their powers mid-sentence. Somewhere a goddess is screeching about the situation. A grown man is grabbed by the ankle and hurled through the air like a bowling ball. He is an S-rank fighter feared by monsters and worshipped by millions. This man takes out a whole platoon upon landing. A man checks his reflection in a diner spoon. He doubles over in agony. 20 years of stored power slam into his body all at once. The waitress thinks he is simply choking on soup. All of those events involve the same man. Every single person who wronged him will find out who he is. They will likely end up with their faces on the ground. Here is how the story starts. 20 years ago, the best team of humanity pursued a terrible monster. This monster was called the Crimson Eye. It lived deep inside the Devil Tower structure. 12 of the strongest fighters on the planet stormed the structure together. They were known as the Zodiac Saints. Only one of them actually finished the fight. His name is Lee Geon. Picture the room during the final battle. The boss is on the ropes. Geon turns around for backup. He needs one hand to pull him out before the tower seals. Instead, he only sees 11 people running away. There is no shout and no explanation. They are simply gone. The tower locks behind them. Geon is alone with a monster that refuses to die properly. Outside, the story writes itself fast. The 11 saints who fled tell a lie to the world. They claim Geon sacrificed himself on purpose. They describe it as a tragic and noble hero death. The story is very marketable for the group. Then the traders split the fortune of Geon. They carve up his legendary gear like a buffet. One saint auctions off pieces of his life for profit while cameras roll. The public buys every word of the story. People believe saints do not lie. They believe saints are always the good guys. That is how the whole system works. Meanwhile, the sacrifice is still breathing inside the tower. He survives there for 20 years. No rescue party or search team ever comes. Geon faces an endless swarm of regenerating monsters. He loses his left arm in that pit. His body is torn apart and stitched back together many times. His stubbornness keeps him alive during the struggle. Every time he heals, he gets more furious. He also becomes harder to kill. This cycle continues for 20 years. He hears nothing from the people who called themselves his friends. Silence lasts for 2 full decades. The tower is more than just a prison. A secret seat exists at its core. The zodiac system pretends this 13th constellation does not exist. It is called Ophiuchus. No one has ever claimed this forbidden and unranked seat. Nobody who found the seat survived long enough to use it. However, Geon survives. He crushes the last guardian of the tower. His body is barely holding together at the time. The whole structure detonates around him like a celebration. Out of the dust and fire walks a man who should be dead. He has 2 arms and 0 scars. His face looks nothing like the broken wreck from 20 years ago. The Ophiuchus seat did more than save him. It rebuilt his body from the ground up. He is now stronger and younger. From his perspective, he is also annoyingly handsome. An orange tier calamity appears before he can brush off the dust. The orange tier designation means everyone must evacuate the city. These monsters flatten whole neighborhoods for fun. Geon steps on its skull like a soda can. He keeps walking. He finds 2 stranded teenagers hiding from a wolf boss. This monster usually requires a full squad and an airstrike. Geon handles it alone without breaking his stride. The teenagers are unaware they watched a legend in action. They repay him by buying him clothes and a large meal. Geon is currently dressed in 20-year-old rags. He looks like he has not eaten in a decade. To be fair, he has not eaten in that time. Things get interesting at a diner during his meal. Geon catches his reflection in a spoon. The Ophiuchus mark on his skin lights up suddenly. Intense pain hits him like a truck. His entire history in the tower is forced into his body. Every kill and every ounce of strength returns to him. The system held 20 years of back pay. Now it has delivered the full amount in one lump sum. This pain brings a new power called full body regeneration. It is an F-rank ability. That sounds unimpressive until you see what it does. It instantly heals any wound and reattaches any limb. He can survive anything short of total annihilation. There is one catch to this power. His statistics crash by half while his body recovers. This is a fair trade for a man without a left arm. Geon is now fed and clothed. He checks the news after 2 decades underground. This is a big mistake for everyone else involved. The internet is full of coverage about the Zodiac Saints. They host charity galas and sell merchandise. The Saints give rehearsed interviews about honoring a fallen hero. Geon sees his own face on memorial statues. People cry about his name at award shows. However, the truth remains buried under the lies. These 11 people ran away and got rich off the name of Geon. They profited while he was still alive and fighting underground. Geon reads the news without saying a word. He does not yell or smash the table. He simply closes the article. Somewhere out there, 11 people will regret their choices. They should have finished the job. Yang Wei is first on the list. He is the Aries Saint. Yang Wei is a heavy-set and cowardly man. He currently owns most of the stolen treasure from Geon. Rumors are spreading that the dead sacrifice might be alive. Yang Wei is sweating through his silk robes. A different phone rings not far away. The Sagittarius Saint, Hugo Otters, picks up the call. He hears a voice he has not heard in 20 years. The voice is calm and flat. It promises that everyone involved will pay for their actions. Hugo never took any of the stolen fortune. He kept searching for Geon for a long time. Others gave up and moved on to press conferences. This phone call drops the temperature in the room. The temperature feels 20 degrees colder. Even his loyalty cannot erase 20 years of guilt. A monster the size of a building will be defeated. Somewhere out there, a teddy bear will start screaming. 11 people thought their biggest problem was public relations. Now they will learn what an unranked fighter can do. Geon is back, and he remembers every single name. Most of the world does not know anything is wrong yet. To them, Geon is just a statue and a sad story. He walks past a group of high-ranking Gemini disciples. They are loudly bragging about how their order carried the old raid. They claim the dead guy was overrated. Nobody in that group knows they are standing 3 feet from him. Geon does not monologue or reveal himself. Instead, he simply flicks one of them in the forehead. The disciple drops like someone cut his strings. His friends laugh and assume it is a joke. They decide to test their luck. One by one, forehead flicks put them face down on the pavement. There are no punches or magical auras used. He casually swats the elite fighters like gnats and walks away. News of this encounter does not spread. None of the disciples are conscious enough to tell anyone. Geon has nowhere else to go. He stays at the apartment of a young man named Cheon Sung-jae. Sung-jae is the son of Hugo and a rank A Gemini disciple. He is completely obsessed with the legendary hero Lee Geon. His entire apartment is a shrine filled with posters and action figures. He even has limited edition merchandise from Bidding Wars. Geon does not realize the value of these items. He knocks over a shelf while getting settled. This accident shatters half of the collection. Sung-jae loses his temper and attacks. He uses his full strength behind every strike. He screams about respecting the legacy of Lee Geon. Geon ends the fight with a single forehead flick. Sung-jae hits the floor in total shock. He is stunned by how easily Geon neutralized him. This marks the start of a very one-sided roommate situation. Shortly after, Geon goes out to run errands. Even legendary heroes need to buy groceries. A scorpion-type thief with incredible speed tries to rob the store. Geon catches the thief without any real effort. The entire situation feels quite anticlimactic. Suddenly, the sirens start blaring. The whole block receives a red zone alert. This government warning means a dangerous monster is nearby. People must evacuate the district immediately. The queen spider has arrived with a massive swarm. The monsters begin pouring through the city streets. Most people run away in fear. Geon grabs a can from a shelf and throws groceries like grenades. He destroys the swarm units one after another. It is a ridiculous sight to see. A man clears a monster horde using canned soup. However, the plan works incredibly fast. While the swarm dies in the street, Aries forces arrive. They are not there to help the civilians. They intend to bulldoze the entire supermarket foundation. Evidence of a failed historical raid is buried in this district. The Saints have covered up this failure for years. They are willing to risk lives to destroy the evidence. Geon is not in the mood to allow this destruction. He attacks the Queen Spider directly. He uses no weapons or special skills. Geon uses only his bare hands against the massive monster. He slowly takes the creature apart piece by piece. During the chaos, a Gemini captain tries to teleport away. He abandons the civilians he was supposed to protect. The swarm kills him before Geon can even react. Geon finishes off the core of the boss monster. When the monster dies, serpent-shaped energy rips outward from Geon. This energy shreds the barrier around the block. Every soldier in the area freezes in place. This energy signature should not exist. Nobody there has ever felt anything like it before. They watched a civilian defeat a boss alone. Usually, an entire division is needed for such a task. Geon then walks straight into the wreckage to find Yang Wei. The Aries Saint does not see him coming. Yang Wei is busy barking orders about the cover-up. Suddenly, he is staring at a stranger. This man makes his instincts scream in terror. Geon does not waste any time on introductions. He punches through the divine armor of Yang Wei. There are no clever tricks involved here. Pure brute force makes the armor completely useless. What follows is not a typical fight. It is a demolition project with Yang Wei as the target. By the end, Yang Wei is a sobbing wreck. He begs for mercy. He never showed Geon mercy 20 years ago. Geon reaches in and pulls out the soul of Yang Wei. This is far worse than a simple death. He stuffs the soul into a cheap teddy bear. A fleeing soldier had dropped the toy in the dirt. The soul screams from inside the bear. The stuffed animal sits silently in the dirt. That explains the noise from the opening. Now you know what made that sound. Yang Wei cannot object to anything now. Geon breaks into the personal vault of the saint. He finds 20 years of stolen loot. Most of the items are ignored. Then, Geon finds a shape-shifting slime creature. It is kept in a containment tank as a prize. The name of the creature is Lime. It used to belong to Geon. Lime launches itself at Geon the moment the tank opens. His expression softens for the first time. This is a small mercy and a big reunion. Lime provides more than just sentimental value. Geon regains access to a mobile creation workshop. This portable forge allows him to craft gear. He can break down enemy items on the fly. 20 years of gathering monster parts is now useful. Geon is checking his inventory when the door blows open. Hugo arrives after tracking the destruction across the city. Nothing else on Earth causes this much property damage. Hugo does not say anything clever. He stares at the stranger in the vault. The man is holding Lime like an old friend. Hugo raises his sword halfway. He is ready to fight this unidentified threat. Geon answers in the only way he knows. He punches Hugo in the stomach. It is not hard enough to cause injury. It is just hard enough to be recognizable. This specific greeting comes from 2 decades of trust. Hugo doubles over and begins wheezing. He feels pain and disbelief. Suddenly, the truth clicks in his mind. Hugo knows this specific hit. He has felt it 100 times before. They used to spar for fun many years ago. Hugo quietly says the name Geon. That is all it takes for him to realize. Hugo was always the loyal one. He never touched a cent of stolen gold. He spent 20 years hating himself for the past. Now he sees his friend standing right there. Geon is alive and clearly furious. This realization is a massive shock to Hugo. There is no time for a long reunion. The guardian avatar of Yang Wei finally stirs. This hulking beast was summoned to protect the vault. It charges at both men. Geon does not use his full strength. He subdues the beast with casual dominance. The massive creature soon submits to him. He claims the beast instead of killing it. Geon names the creature Piggy. This feared attack beast now follows Geon. It waddles behind him like an oversized pet. Hugo watches all of this in silence. He realizes his old friend is now much stronger. Geon is weirder and more terrifying than before. 1 saint is down and 10 more remain. The next stop is a pawn shop. Geon will meet an old student there. The student does not recognize his own teacher. Finally, the Aquarius saint will learn a lesson. Vanity cannot stop the fists of Geon. The next stop for Geon is an appraisal shop. This is the kind of place where old relics get valued. They are priced here before they hit the black market. He has a bag of loot from the vault of Yang Wei. This bag of loot requires a full and immediate pricing. The appraiser behind the counter is a double S rank specialist. This is a rare and respected title in this world. Geon does not say it out loud. However, he recognizes the appraiser immediately. This man used to be his own student. Geon personally trained him for many years. He taught the man everything he knows. The man spent 20 years treating an old notebook like a sacred text. Geon once scribbled in that notebook long ago. The student pores over every page for hidden wisdom. He is looking for wisdom from his vanished teacher. A small twist occurs that nobody saw coming. That notebook is actually just the old hit list of Geon. It contains scratched-out names and angry notes. It also has complaints about former coworkers. The former student treated a grudge diary like scripture for 2 decades. Geon does not correct him. Some things are certainly better left entirely alone. While the appraisal happens, a very different energy enters the shop. Sophie Morty, who is the Aquarius Saint, arrives. She arrives with a large and loyal entourage. She radiates the specific confidence of someone who never faced consequences. This woman is incredibly vain to a fault. She cares more about her skincare routine than human welfare. Sophie is here because of rumors about a stranger. Rumors of a stranger dismantling Saints finally reached her. She gets close enough to sense the aura of Geon. Immediately, her instincts short-circuit. She does not know his identity. She only knows on a primal level that she should be terrified. Sophie decides to try erasing the source of her fear. She orders her people to slaughter everyone in the shop. This includes witnesses and staff members. She wants a clean sweep with no loose ends. This is business as usual for her. She has spent years silencing anyone inconvenient. This is a big mistake with Geon in the room. Sophie throws out a wall of high-level water clones. This technique would flatten most fighters with ease. Geon walks through them like they are mist. He does not dodge or block. He simply keeps advancing while the clones shatter. By the time she realizes nothing is working, he is close. What follows is fast and one-sided. She pulls an enchanted Aquarius dagger. Geon snaps it in half without slowing his stride. He delivers a couple of open palm slaps to her face. These are not devastating blows. They are meant to humiliate her. She has spent her whole life being untouchable. When it ends, Sophie is on the ground. Her makeup is smudged and her dignity is gone. She is surrounded by her own broken clones. Geon loots a credit badge from a downed guard. He passes an ice cream stand outside. He decides 20 years without dessert is a debt worth collecting. Nothing says he humbled a saint like licking an ice cream cone. He paid for it using the credit line of her guard. Word about the mystery attacker is spreading. However, nobody connects the dots to a dead legend. The public thinks a rogue S-rank vigilante is dismantling corrupt officials. The Saints know better. Panic starts to set in behind 12 different sets of closed doors. The stakes rise quickly now. The next destination for Geon is Drachma. This is a floating city built in the sky. It is reserved for the elite. The city hosts a global relic auction. The ultra-wealthy bid obscene amounts of money for legendary gear. Naturally, some of that gear used to belong to him. Geon barely sets foot upon the floating platform. Then, the Leo Saint, Stephen Marker appears. Stephen is known to be the aggressive type. He is obsessed with battle and very insecure. He does not wait for a formal introduction. He opens with a full lightning strike. He wants to test the newcomer everyone is whispering about. Geon deflects the strike without breaking his walking pace. He does not even look interested in the fight. This makes Stephen angrier than actually losing would have. A specific item is up for bid today. It is a massive Great Bone Club. Sellers claim it is a relic of Lee Geon. Stephen wants to own the relic very badly. He spends $1 billion to secure it. He outbids everyone in a spectacle of ego. He holds the prize up like a trophy. Geon walks over and looks at the item. He snaps it in half with his bare hands. He reveals that it is just an ordinary cowbone. It is not a relic and not enchanted. The entire auction hall goes completely dead silent. $1 billion was wasted on a prop. Suddenly, an ice dragon calamity crashes into the city. This beast is a dangerous red-tier monster. Support beams start failing and civilians scatter everywhere. The situation becomes genuinely dangerous. Hugo has been trailing Geon since the vault. He uses a technique called the Fury of Apollo. This turns collapsing debris into ash to protect the crowds. This buys time but not victory. The massive ice dragon is still coming forward. Hostages are caught in the chaos with parasitic mind control. Geon does not hesitate for even a single moment. He plows straight into the wreckage. He rips the parasitic growths off the hostages one by one. The dragon tears through the platform. Geon performs triage with his bare hands. Steven is still reeling from his humiliation. He throws up a sovereign thunderstorm barrier. This defensive technique shields a section of the city. The barrier is a genuinely impressive piece of work. Geon rips through it anyway like wet paper. He uses the opening to end the dragon fight. Geon decides to humiliate Steven again. He turns and grabs him during a tantrum. He punches Steven through the edge of the continent. Steven does not fly gracefully. He disappears off the platform in an undignified arc. The crowd watches him lose his footing entirely. 2 of the 12 saints are now defeated. Public humiliation is at 100%. Below the wreckage, a Gemini disciple named Seung-jae makes a decision. This puts him in the path of a goddess. Back at ground level, word of what happened at Drachma spread fast. Seung-jae finally put it together. He was the kid whose action figures got smashed and whose forehead got flicked. He spent his whole life worshipping a legend. He did not realize that legend was living in his apartment. The stranger crashing at his place was Lee Geon. This man casually humiliated 2 saints in one day. Seung-jae recognized that this was not a coincidence. His response was not subtle. Seung-jae was an A-rank Gemini disciple. He was raised inside the cult from childhood and sworn to their goddess. He had been wrapped in their insignia since before he could walk. In front of his superiors, he ripped his Gemini insignia off his chest. He threw the insignia in the dirt. He told them flatly that he would choose the real hero every single time. He preferred the hero over a sanctuary built on lies. That kind of defiance did not go unnoticed. His commanding officers noticed his actions. The goddess Freya herself also took note. She was the being who actually powered the entire Gemini order. Freya was divine and furious. She was not the least bit interested in mortal disobedience. She manifested directly and descended into the middle of the apartment. She intended to make an example out of him. This was not a warning shot. This was an execution. The presence of Freya alone started warping the air. Blood-red light poured down over the body of Seung-jae. It looked as if the room itself was bleeding. He was on his knees. He was punished for a loyalty he willingly chose. He screamed through the pain because divine punishment had no off switch. Geon showed up in the middle of it. For the first time in this whole rampage, Geon was not dealing with an arrogant saint. He faced an actual goddess. Most people would have hesitated here. Geon did not have the instincts of most people. He still held a stolen skill from earlier called Abyssal Cut. He had ripped it straight from the arsenal of Cancer Saint Jean-Louis Morand. This occurred during a previous fight. The skill was incredibly dangerous. Geon did not aim it at Freya directly. That would have been suicidal even for him. Instead, he targeted the connection. Every Gemini disciple on the planet drew power through a link back to Freya. This link was the backbone of their entire order. It was a global network of faith and magic. The network kept thousands of elite fighters combat ready. Geon sliced straight through that link with Abyssal Cut. The result was instant and planet-wide. Every single Gemini disciple lost their power in the same second. This included every captain and every elite Templar. There was no warning and no gradual fade. One moment they were combat-ready S-rank fighters. The next moment they were just people. They stood there confused about why their strength evaporated mid-sentence. Freya felt it like a physical wound. Her connection to her own faithful was severed in an instant. This happened by a technique she did not know existed. It was outside her own domain. That got her attention off Seung-jae completely. She turned on Geon instead. The fight that followed was not a fist fight. It was closer to 2 forces of nature colliding. Freya threw divine lightning. This lightning did not discriminate between mortal and monster. It was raw enough to erase most fighters on contact. Geon did not dodge the attack. He absorbed the lightning instead. He used a cancer core fragment he had looted earlier. This was a scrap of stolen power from an enemy he had not faced yet. He repurposed the power on the fly. Geon built a weapon out of thin air. He constructed a scythe on the spot. He used stolen materials and pure improvisation. Apparently, even goddess-tier lightning was just raw material to him. What followed was brutal. Geon did not just fight Freya, he hurt her. He genuinely and physically hurt a being that was supposed to be untouchable. Mortal hands were never meant to strike a goddess. The scene seemed impossible. A goddess was bleeding and staggering. She lost ground to a man who was rotting in a dungeon weeks ago. That was according to his own timeline. It took other cosmic deities intervening to stop the fight. They descended and chained her. They physically dragged her away from the battle. Geon could not finish whatever he had started. Even the gods knew better than to let this go all the way. With Freya gone, the immediate threat was neutralized. Geon turned his attention to the local muscle of the Gemini Order. These were the legendary warrior avatars. They were powerful constructs summoned to enforce the will of the cult. Without the power grid behind them, they did not stand a chance. Geon forced them to surrender outright. He folded an entire branch of divine enforcement under his will. This happened on the same afternoon he snapped a billion-dollar bone. He found his old memory notebook in the wreckage. This was the real notebook this time. It was not the hit list his student had been worshipping. It was a small thing in the middle of all the carnage. However, it clearly meant something to him. 20 years was a long time to go without his old belongings. He wanted something that belonged to who he used to be. The Gemini Saint himself ended up trapped. This was the one who orchestrated the assassination attempt. He had used the alien spirit queen earlier. Geon did not kill him. He sealed his spirit form inside a repaired statue. He used glue to seal the statue. After the teddy bear and the cow bone, this tracked. An entire power structure was dismantled in an afternoon. Sung-jae was still shaking from the divine punishment. He was very much alive. He looked at the man who just fought a literal goddess. In that moment, something cemented itself for good. He was not just a fan anymore. He chose a side publicly and permanently. It very nearly cost him everything. Word of what happened did not stay contained. A goddess getting beaten by a mortal could not stay quiet. Her own peers had dragged her off. The Gemini Order scrambled to control the narrative. In a private meeting room, the remaining saints started to understand. They were being hunted. This was not a rogue vigilante with a grudge. It was something they should have feared 20 years ago. Not everyone processed the situation calmly. The daughter of Hugo was named Che Yuha. She was a spear wielder and a lifelong Geon devotee. She was raised on the same archival footage as her brother. She decided to prove her own combat worth. She cornered Geon with her spear. She demanded a real fight to show she deserved to stand alongside him. However, a full marriage proposal came out of her mouth. She said this in front of her own father. It was loud and public. The proposal was completely unprompted. It was clearly not what either of them meant to happen. Hugo did not take the news well. He had spent the entire day recalibrating his reality. His dead best friend was alive and had just fought a goddess. Hugo misread the entire situation as some kind of manipulation. He responded as an exhausted and protective father. He launched a full storm of flaming arrows directly at Geon. Geon caught the entire volley barehanded without blinking. He reached over and smacked Hugo on the head. He disciplined him like a kid who broke curfew. It was the most normal interaction Geon had all day. He had fought gods and snapped bones. Getting yelled at by an old friend was almost refreshing. There was no time to untangle the family drama properly. The next call came in fast. A naval battlefield near Manila needed backup. Local forces could not handle the threat alone. A red-tier calamity had surfaced called the Thousand Arms. It was an octopus-type monster with many tentacles. It was capable of wrapping entire ships and dragging them under. A red-tier threat meant the area was already lost. Geon mobilized without much ceremony. He reached the water quickly. The Thousand Arms had already started wrapping around naval vessels. It crushed hulls and dragged sailors into the deep. Geon did not wade in carefully. He cut through the tentacles. He used a series of clean strikes. He reduced the fleet-ending threat into ribbons in seconds. The finishing blow was almost anticlimactic. He used a single spear strike. The strike went straight through the core of the creature. The Thousand Arms went still and sank beneath the waves. The sailors who watched did not fully process the event. 1 second they were bracing to die. The next second, a stranger ended a red-tier calamity. No one on that ship knew his name yet. That was about to change. Capricorn Saint 7 Village Vladimir was waiting at this battlefield. He was a rival craftsman with a long list of stolen goods. This included an achievement hammer that belonged to Geon. Vladimir ran a much darker operation than the others. He had been drugging frontline troops with mind control potions. He kept entire units obedient through chemical means. Geon showed up and asked questions. Vladimir did not bother denying his actions. He was confident and almost smug. He commanded the drugged soldiers through a flute. They were like puppets on strings. Vladimir used them to physically pin Geon down. He offered a legendary sword as a bribe to Stephen Marker. Stephen was still bruised and humiliated. Vladimir wanted Stephen to finish the job. It was a genuinely ugly plan. He used manipulated soldiers and a bribed rival. The saint was willing to drug his own countrymen. Stephen drew a line here. He was arrogant and aggressive. He had deep issues about being compared to Geon. However, drugging soldiers and stabbing someone in the back was not his style. He rejected the offer outright. He turned on Vladimir instead. He smashed through the robotic armor of the Capricorn saint without hesitation. Geon watched the whole thing with visible boredom. He was pinned by a squad of drugged soldiers. They did not even know what they were doing. Geon had fought gods earlier that day. Mind-controlled infantry was barely an inconvenience. He stood up. The soldiers holding him down might as well have been holding down a mountain. The plan of Vladimir collapsed. Stephen was doing the dirty work. Geon finally got confirmation of something bigger. A name had been surfacing from multiple sources. That name was Virgo. This person was not just another corrupt official. Virgo looked like the actual architect behind the betrayal 20 years ago. Geon reclaimed his stolen achievement hammer from Vladimir. There was not much resistance left in the man. In the chaos, Geon grabbed the unconscious Stephen Marker by the ankle. He treated saints like disposable equipment. He threw the body of Stephen like a human bowling ball. He threw him straight through the retreating soldiers. He cleared the battlefield in one absurd and devastating strike. It was not elegant, and it was not supposed to be. Geon closed out another chapter of his revenge with casual brutality. Something caught his eye in the wreckage. It was dangling off the ankle of Stephen. This was something that should not have been there. Geon dropped the leg immediately. He had a look of genuine disgust on his face. Whatever it was not part of the plan. Rewind slightly. Before Geon ever set foot on that naval battlefield, the story was quietly building in the background. The Gemini saint, Queen, did not just sit around. He watched Geon tear through Aries and Aquarius. Then, he planned. Queen is smart in the way that scared people usually are. He knows exactly what happened to Yang Wei and Sophie. He is not about to fight this mystery attacker with fists and pride. He wants a weapon that is not even from this world. So, he opens a portal. This was not a small portal. He tore a full-dimensional rift wide enough to drag through a transcendent alien spirit queen. This is not some tier-ranked calamity from the usual monster charts. This entity does not belong on this planet at all. Queen summoned it specifically for its brute force. He assumes force from a different category of existence is the only way to put Geon down. For a second, it almost looks like a good idea. The Spirit Queen tears through the portal in a burst of alien light. It screeches in a frequency that makes every window in a 3-block radius shatter. Queen actually smiles while watching it happen. Finally, he thinks he found something Geon cannot casually walk through. Geon looks at it with mild interest. He views it like an unusually large spider in a bathroom. He shows zero fear. The Spirit Queen lunges fast and moves in ways that do not track with normal physics. Geon does not dodge or counter with a weapon. Instead, Geon just grabs it by the face. During the lunge and shriek, one hand closes around the head of the creature. He simply drags it back through the portal it came from. Geon reverses the entire summon like he is returning a bad delivery. The confidence of Queen evaporates in real time. His trump card just got manhandled back into the other dimension. Geon did not even bother drawing a weapon. This failure is why Queen later becomes desperate. Eventually, he ends up trapped in a statue held together with glue. When an alien Spirit Queen gets face-dragged back into the void, morale takes a hit. It is a hit that is hard to recover from. Now, let us look at the other thread. This thread involves the Cancer Saint, Jean-Louis Morand. Yang Wei is the coward, and Sophie is the vain one. Jean-Louis is the calculated one. He is sinister and manipulative. He is comfortable operating through phantom divisions. These divisions use illusions and clone-based tactics. This keeps his actual body far from any real danger. His specialty is life-draining storms. This technique does not just hurt you, it slowly siphons your strength away while you survive the weather. When Geon comes for him, Jean-Louis does not panic. Instead, he mocks Geon. He hides behind a wall of clones made from human reporters. He twisted these reporters into disposable decoys. He sneers about how pathetic it is to hold a 20-year-old grudge. He calls Geon an obsessive ghost. It is the wrong thing to say to this man. Geon spent those 20 years alone in a collapsing tower. That tower was specifically fueled by that grudge. Geon does not bother fighting through the illusions one by one. That is the mistake everyone makes with Jean-Louis. They treat the clones like the actual threat. Instead, Geon activates his 13th sense. This tracking ability is tied to his Ophiuchus power. It exposes exactly where the real weak points are hiding. It cuts straight through every layer of deception. Jean-Louis built his entire fighting style around these layers. Geon locks onto the actual core of his opponent. Jean-Louis realizes what is happening half a second too late. The clones scatter and the Phantom Division collapses. Geon is already standing directly in front of the real Jean-Louis. He reaches into the chest before a defensive technique can be summoned. Geon does not pull out the life of the man. Instead, he pulls out the soul core. He tears 33% of it out with his bare hand. This is not a killing blow. It is something arguably crueler. It is a permanent and irreversible weakening. A third of the identity of the saint is ripped away. The soul is left twitching in the palm of Geon. Jean-Louis screams on the ground. He is suddenly far less untouchable than he was 30 seconds ago. Jean-Louis is broken and desperate during this interrogation. He bargains for whatever is left of his dignity. Suddenly, the name slips out. Under pressure and pain, Jean-Louis blurts out the name Virgo. He identifies Virgo as the one responsible for the plot. It is the same name Vladimir would later provide. He says it during the chaos of the Manila battlefield. Vladimir had no way of knowing Jean-Louis already said it. These were two separate interrogations of two separate saints. One shared name was spoken under duress. It points at something bigger than 11 cowards who ran 20 years ago. Whoever Virgo is, they did not just benefit from the betrayal. There is a growing and uncomfortable pattern. It suggests that Virgo planned the entire event. This brings everything back around to the battlefield near Manila. The armor of Vladimir is in pieces. Stephen is standing over him. He chose not to stab a rival in the back. Even when the offer was there, he refused. Geon is holding the ankle of Stephen mid-swing. He is about to complete a very undignified finishing move. Then, he stops cold. Something is wrapped around the ankle of Stephen. It is barely visible under the torn fabric of the boot. This object has no business being there. It is not a wound or a curse mark from the fight. It is something deliberate and placed. The expression of Geon shifts from bored annihilation to sharp disgust. That thing is not part of any technique from Stephen or Vladimir. It looks planted. It looks like a message from someone who knew where Geon would be. He drops the leg and does not finish the throw. Geon usually treats saints like disposable furniture. For the first time all day, he stops to think. Somewhere out there, someone is pulling strings from the shadows. They just left a calling card. The face of Geon shows that they will not enjoy what happens next. He will figure out what it means. 11 saints were involved. 4 are down hard. Yang Wei was stuffed into a teddy bear. Sophie was humiliated in front of her own guards. Stephen is bankrupt and airborne. Vladimir was stripped of his hammer and his armor. A goddess was dragged off in chains. An entire global power grid was severed in a single afternoon. A billion-dollar relic was exposed as a cowbone. This happened in front of the world elite. Behind it all, a name keeps surfacing. That name is Virgo. The mark on the ankle of Stephen makes one thing clear. This was never just 11 people running from a monster. Somebody built this entire betrayal on purpose. They are still out there watching. They are one step removed from every beating Geon handed out today. He is coming for the rest of the list. For the first time since walking out of that tower, Geon has a new target. He has a new name to add to the top of his list.